Hello, it is July 28th, 2022, and you are here with me, Angela James, for the 3 at 3. If you've never joined me before, 3 at 3 is the live Q&A that I do where I answer 3 questions that have been previously submitted, and I do it at 3 p.m. Eastern once every other week. If you are interested in submitting questions, please be on the lookout. I didn't grab that link this time. For the link, you can find it in the description of this presentation. So you should be able to find the link. If not, you can find it via my newsletter or via past presentations. So I'm so glad to have you all here with me today. I do have a small snoring dog beside me, so hopefully you can't hear the snoring dog. He's a Chihuahua with no teeth, so he's got his tongue out and he's snoring. And it's pretty cute. He's my office buddy. I am so glad to have you with me today. Today, actually, there is a theme again to the questions. So there was a theme the last time that we did this. And once again, the questions are themed. And it is so interesting to see the questions come in and to see the theme developing. And I actually subbed in last minute, like just 5 minutes before this, one of the questions, because it is all about agents. And so I thought having 3 questions about literary agents was actually quite interesting. So I'm going to go with that theme today. We're going to talk about agents. So let's get started. The first question that came in is a multi-part question, and it says, I've read that literary agents often don't want to publish your work if it's self-published already. I've been querying my second novel on and off for a year and will continue to do so. However, my family and particularly my high school students keep pressuring me to let them read it. Students don't want a printed copy. Do you think it would work against me if I self-published for personal use only? So I actually followed up with this person via email to just ask a clarifying question, because what I wanted to know is what they were considering doing as far as self-publishing for personal use only. So I said, can you clarify for me if you'd be self-publishing it anywhere where anyone can purchase, or if you'd be creating a few print books or an ebook to gift your friends and family, but it wouldn't be for sale anywhere? And the person responded and said, I guess I'm looking at both options. And if I had it for sale, would it count against me? So this is helpful information for me to be able to answer this question. And the answer is yes. Let's define published. So the basic definition of something being published is that it's available for purchase. This is a very generic description, and we can talk about something being published as fan fiction or on Wattpad, where it's not necessarily for sale, it's free for everybody. But the basic definition of being published is that you have published something where people can purchase it. So once you put something up for sale where people can purchase it, you are now considered having self-published the project. So if you want to do that, then it is likely that agents are going to now be looking at the sales record. They're going to want to know, how did it sell? How did you market it? What kind of marketing plan did you develop around it? Who bought it? How hard did you try to sell it? It is now considered part of your backlist, and it is considered previously published. It is a lot harder to get a book that's been previously published into literary agents' interest and then into a traditional publisher than it is a book that hasn't been published at all. Now, of course, we can all think of exceptions where something has been previously published and then previously self-published, and then a publisher picks it up. But those usually have a certain very specific parameter of circumstances around them. So for instance, if we're looking at somebody like Ruby Dixon, who has had her Ice Barbarian Planets. I'm messing up the title, but that those books picked up by Berkeley in order to republish in print. That's quite different. I know that there's an author who self-published a fantasy book that recently got picked up by Tor. So he unself-published it, and now it's being published by Tor. Those things do happen, But in both of those cases, they were book talk sensations, TikTok book sensations. And in the past, when something like this has happened, it's because the book has broken out in some way, and a publisher wants to get not just that book on their publishing list, but usually unpublished follow-up books as well. So it's those, again, very specific circumstances. So yes, if you previously published a book, my advice is almost always going to be don't query that book, because you're not going to have a lot of luck with it. Now, sometimes publishers will overlook previously published if it's something that they really want, that really stands out to them, and they feel like they can get you in front of the market and you didn't sell very many copies. And they go, well, that's actually good because we can um, put a new cover on this, put a new book description, re-edit it, and put it out to an audience almost as if it's a brand new book. But again, these are all very specific cases. And in most cases, as soon as an agent or a publisher sees the words previously published, we kind of go, okay, maybe not. So if you wanted your students and your family to be able to purchase it, and you want to, or excuse me, to be able to read it, and you want to pursue traditional publishing, then the best way to do that is to have a small amount of copies, print or digital, created that's just for them to read it. And that's okay. You can distribute your work to friends and family as long as you're not putting it available for purchase. So hopefully that answered your question. And if you have any follow-up questions, please let me know either in the comments of this video here on Facebook or on YouTube, depending on where you're viewing it. The next question is one that came in right as I was starting, and it is, I'd love some insight into what agents might mean when they say they don't have a strong editorial vision for a manuscript. So this is one of those code phrases that can be hard to figure out if you're not used to the industry. Generally, one thing that agents can mean when they say this is they know that it might either need work, or it's something that isn't quite right, but they're not quite sure how they can help you to get it right for the market. Now, sometimes it's just a way of saying, I didn't like this. I don't want to say I didn't like this, or not for me. A lot of times now, because not for me or I didn't connect with this can come with so many other heavy connotations. Um, Agents and editors are avoiding using phrasing like that. So not having a strong editorial vision can mean that they know it needs work, but they don't know how they would suggest fixing it, or what changes they would suggest, or it just means they don't like it. They didn't connect with it. It's not the right project for them. It doesn't fit on their list. So it's really hard to read into something like this, and I don't have the context of the letter around it. So this did come from a From Written to Recommended community member. So if you would like to ask me follow-up questions and share more detail with me on the group, you're welcome to do that as well. All right, last question. Can you explain how book auctions work? I love this question because I know that book auctions seem like a really mysterious thing. And I also have an agent friend, and she's often doing book auctions. So I do have some insight into book auctions, not because I've ever been an agent myself, but because I have been an editor and I've been on the other side of book auctions and seen how they work. So the first thing is that not every book that's going to a traditional publisher goes through an auction. When it goes to an auction is when a book just hits with editors right out of the gate, and the agent suddenly has a lot of attention on this book, and they know that there are a lot of editors who are interested in picking up this book and publishing it at their publishing house. So when that happens, rather than just submitting it to different publishers and waiting to see who offers, what happens is the agent will submit it and either tell the editors in advance, or as interest comes in, they will follow up and say, okay, this book is going to have an auction. And what that means is that the agent is going to take bids from the houses, and then the agent and author are going to decide who to go with based on the bids. Now, there can be a couple of different kinds of auctions. There can be auction rounds in which you put in a preliminary bid, and then the three, like let's say there's 6 houses involved in the auction, and there's 6 bids that come in by the deadline. The agent can then say, okay, the top 3 bids are now moving to the next round. Your bids were all very similar. So you get to, like any auction, you get to bid again. You get to come to the table with your next bid. Now, if somebody comes in really low, or it's not really a publisher that you wanted to work with, but you were trying to, there's lots of publishing politics. So the agent was trying to be, keep the relationship intact with the editor, and they included the publisher, then they can drop the low bids or the bids that aren't as attractive. So you move the people to the next round and you say, okay, your bids were all similar. What do you got for the next round? And the expectation is that the publishing house is going to come with more money, but auctions aren't always about the money. It can also be about what else they're offering. What else are you going to offer? And what rights are you expecting? So a lot of times in auctions, when you have a book that's going up for auction, it might only go for North American rights, or it might only go for US rights, because the agent knows that they can auction off each right to different publishers in different territories. So you might be auctioning US rights, Canada rights, UK rights, Australia, New Zealand, you can be Germany. So like all the different countries, you can be doing each one of those either separate or grouped together, depending on how powerful the book is and what kind of international appeal it's going to have. So when the agent gets the bids, they may be looking for just North American or just US rights. How much are you going to pay me for those? What other advertising are you going to promise? Are there bonuses that you're going to include? There's just like a whole host of things that can be included in the auction. So when you have auction rounds, then you do at least usually 2 rounds. It can go to more rounds if, once again, you have similar, or the agent may just say, okay, we're going to decide based on the second round if they don't want to do multiple rounds. So that's one kind of auction. The other kind of auction is just a best bid auction, which means you get one chance as a publisher to put in your best bid for that book. There are no rounds. There's no like do-overs. This is it. You put in your very best bid. And the reason that you might do this is because you want to get it done quickly. You wanted to get this kind of auction done quickly, or you know that there's opportunity for an auction, but there's not going to be a lot of appetite for multiple rounds or for building. You just know that everybody's going to come with their very best offer, and what you get is what you get. So in best bids, what happens is you set a deadline and you say, get your bid in by this date. And then we're going to go through them and we're going to choose best bid. Now, most people think of best bid again as money, but it can be other things. It can include, in addition to what I said before about bonuses, marketing and promotion, also who's the editor going to be? Who is the publisher? Because the author may be trying to work with a certain publisher, and that's the publishing house they go with. So the agent is the person who sets the parameters around auctions. So auctions can happen different for every agent. And what editors are looking for is they're looking for the rules of the auction. They just want the parameters. They want to know, okay, here's how the auction is going to work. The editor does not determine how the auction is going to work. They don't determine the dates. That is all determined by the agent. There is usually not much for the author to do at this stage. They have to wait for the bids to come in, and then the agent comes to them and says, okay, here's what we got. Let's talk over your options. And at that point, there may have already been phone calls that occurred before the auction started, or it may be that the author wants to talk with the editor and see what their editorial vision is before they decide between 2 very close bids. One other thing to keep in mind is that there may be one publisher who has multiple imprints bidding on one book. When this happens, Usually the publisher is going to do what's called a house bid, which means everybody has the same money. Everybody at the publisher, at the different imprints, get the same money to offer. And then they have to make their offer juicy based on what kind of support they're offering, what their marketing plan looks like, what their promotion plan looks like, what the editorial vision is, who the editor is. Maybe it's a really credentialed editor, and that's going to sway the author towards that house bid. So there's a lot of different layers to auctions. And I definitely missed some nuance that if an agent is watching this, they'll maybe like, no, you forgot to say this. But for an author who's just looking for general information about what a book auction looks like, that is a great overview. Okay, so that is the 3 questions. I managed to keep it within almost 15 minutes, 16 minutes this time. Remember, if you want to ask questions for next time, the form is open. All you need to do is fill out the form and you will go on the list for the next 3 at 3. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, have any questions, remember you can ask them in the comments of either YouTube or Facebook. I look forward to seeing you next time. I am Angela James. And remember, you got this. I believe in you.